Hey guys, this is Mel, and I am back to talk about Motherland Fort Salem, episode 310, titled Revolution Part 2, which premiered Tuesday, August 23rd, 2002 on Freeform. I am recording on early August 26th before work, and this is the series finale episode. So, huge spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the episode already, please go do so first and then come back and see what I have to say about the episode. My other video reminders are up on screen, so take a moment to remind yourselves of those. But yeah, I'm still having mixed thoughts about this, so we'll talk about it as we go through each of the sections. But first off, the timeline of the episode, this takes place shortly after the events of 309, just because it really starts off from our campfire group just finding out that Fort Salem has fallen, and it kind of picks up from them, or at least picks up from them trying to recoup or regroup as well, so it's shortly afterwards. Episode reminder is the fact that this is the series finale. I wish it wasn't, but it is. And the first episode, or the first scene, like I was saying, it is the campfire celebration group being cut short as they try to move to get closer to Fort Salem. They meet up with Sterling, Petra, or Sterling was already there, but they meet up with battle-ready Anacostia, Petra, Sterling, and get news about what's happening with Fort Salem as Camarilla has taken over to get closer to the necro facility for the Mother Mycelium room. So there's that. So based off the storylines, though, I picked up on 3 different ones that we kind of, either they are all connected or we always draw a little bit more attention back to it. So first storyline was Taking Back Fort Salem, second one being the missing steward for the first song, and the third one is Camarilla's comeback. So they're not, some of them might not be in order, so just heads up. But the first storyline would take back Fort Salem. This is where we see Petra, Sterling, Anacostia, and Gregorio dealing with the Camarilla army at the perimeter. This is where their huge numbers of retaliation are coming into it. This we see the introduction of this Camarilla sound dampeners, which causes our quartet's tornado working to stop, but it is also what led to Anacostia being killed in order to save the other 3 when a huge truck came flying her way. Meanwhile, we see our unit that is Rael, Abigail, Tally, Adil, and Scylla rushing to get back to the necro facility because Rael is now in a weaker state due to what's happening in the mycelial wall, similar to what Abigail and Adil had to help Alder get back to the wall. And during this, we see Hirsch unleashing more poison into the mycelium through the ground, and which weakens Rael, but it also infects Scylla and Adil because they were in close proximity to her when she reacted to the poison, or when the witch bomb reacted to the poison. So in that state, Rael was able to get closer to the mycelium wall and kind of sink to it to allow for a door to open, which is where our unit goes through the door and is now in the mycelium world where Tally had the vision of the witch bomb going off. While they're there, and while Adele and Scylla are getting worse in their condition, Rael can't hold in the witch bomb much longer. But this is where Tally realizes their true purpose for the witch bomb and for the vision that she had. And she's pretty much telling Rael to let the witch bomb go instead of not doing it like she originally thought, which is, again, what I thought might be happening when I saw something similar happen with the Flash with the Armageddon crossover, where everyone was saying that Barry ended the world. But it turns out that he ended the world in order to save it. Or I should say he ended the world so he would have the ability to travel back in time to save the world. So this is kind of similar where Tally saw a vision of Rael ending the world, but Rael's quote-unquote ending the world moment was needed in order to save the world and heal it. So that is something there. Which leads into kind of the missing steward, because before we get into Tally's realization, we see Alder traveling all over the world to find the missing steward to the first song, only to discover that it was Jem Bellwether who had the last piece of the first song at a young age, and then she just slowly forgot it as she got older, which led to the Bellwether bloodline having the steward qualities. So Alder returns to the mycelium world to tell Abigail this so she can tap into her family's forgotten song, which is the piece of the first song. and together they all sing the first song just as Rael unleashes the witch bomb, and it spans over the entire earth. It kind of like acts like this a golden protector around it, like kind of like it's giving a shield around the earth. Um, so that's what the witch bomb does. With the third storyline with Camrya's comeback, this is where we see ex-President Silver recording a broadcast about being the real president and claiming that Wade was an imposter due to the face-changing qualities. But then Isadora, who was forced to be their servant during this broadcast, unleashes Penelope with Sterling's help on Hearst and on Silver, and she ends up killing them both with the witch plague that they infected her with. Not sure if Penelope was also killed in that moment too, or if she's just now staying in her black liquid state. But the last scene of the episode shows Mother Mycelium, who is speaking through Alder to Rael, Abigail, and Tally about the history of her gift, how witches were created, and how unleashing of the witch bomb with the first song is what turned everyone into a witch. And now their part in releasing her gift has now bestowed them the status of a goddess, I believe, from my understanding. And just before Alder truly leaves, she tells them to be a good representative as a goddess. I think they said that they were immortal as well too. We also definitely saw them all speaking the mother tongue language with ease. When I think back in season 1 and 2, we saw them, each of them having their own variants of difficulty. So there's that. But moving into tidbits very quickly, it is assumed that Tally and Gregorio are together by the end of the episode. We do see Tally getting her sight back when she was able to see the power of the witch bomb in the first song happening all over the world. We do have Abigail and Adele wanting to honeymoon by the ocean. They have this talk while they're fighting, and they decide the ocean since Adele never went. And then we see Abigail and Nicta reuniting and giving their own apologies to each other and the actions they bestowed upon each other that truly affected their lives. And then we also find out that Nicta is working for President Wade as a way to make amends and kind of, I guess, as her sentence. I mean, it was suggested at the wedding in the previous episode, so I guess Wade did take her up on her offer. So there is that. But let's move on to the most shocking moment of the episode. I think for me it was the fact that Isadora didn't die, even though at the very end of the previous episode her throat was slit and she was bleeding out, and it didn't look like Hearst or any of the Camarilla would want to save her. But the beginning of the episode showed that they did save her. They bandaged up her neck and they started interrogating her. She also had a great moment where she was saying, warning them that the mother would kill them all. That was a great crazed moment from her. It actually looked like Hearst was really worried about that. But yeah, I was surprised that I'm relieved that she didn't die, but I'm also surprised that she survived the extent of her injuries, So there's that. Let's move on to top 3 favorite moments. First one being Anastassia's speech to the Bellwether unit, stating how proud she was to have known them and the huge progress that they've come since their first day at basic training. I should have known that this speech or this moment between all 4 of them, even with Scylla as well too, with the big hug, I should have known it was foreshadowing one of their deaths. It ended up being Anastassia's death, which we'll talk about later. But it was just a really great moment to have that kind of recognition of like how far they've come, which didn't end in death for Anacostia, but I was kind of wondering when they would have that moment, because they usually have something similar like that in any series finale for characters. So that was one where I was happy we at least got to see. Should have figured it was a short foreshadowing moment. But anyways, second favorite I did like was the combined workings that we saw. So first off, the first song, how we got to see superimposed images of the original 6 witches on top of our current stewards, how we got to see the impact of what the combined magic or working of the first song impacted off of. And then also the combined working that created the tornado, having Anacostia, Petra, Sterling, and Gregorio teaming up to create this massive tornado, which was pretty cool. And it was just great to see that kind of combined power, because it definitely is something where at least the Camarilla cannot mimic that. And I wish we got to see more of that when they used it against them, when they used it against the Camarilla. And the third favorite I did have was the fact that Hurst and Silver were both killed by Penelope, by the very thing they used to kill her. Poetic, I would say. It was very also just great to see that these two who have caused us so much chaos were also defeated. I didn't want it to be like they walked away clear. Like after finding out the very end of the episode that the gift was bestowed upon everybody, so everybody's now a witch. I'm glad that people like Hurst and Silver did not survive to see that happen, and did not survive to become witches themselves, even though Hurst was a makeshift version of one. So I'm glad that at least some justice was done against those two, and it was Penelope who dished it out. So, and let's move on to the top 3 peeve moments. A peeve that I did have was the fact that Anacostia died. I understand why, because of the fact that they were going into war. They needed to show a big impact for our characters. Of that happening, and it was a moment of sacrifice for her. It was just, it hurt, but I understood why. But with it being the series finale, you always have to go in believing that not everybody is truly safe to survive at the very end. So there's that. And also, I guess with Anacostia's death, I guess I am glad that the wedding happened beforehand, and that she was able to have that moment of celebration with everybody. So there's that. Another peeve I did have was the idea of the sound dampeners not affecting the Camarilla tech, even though it affected all the witches. For me, in my head, I don't see how that would work, because if you have a sound dampener that's eliminating all sound so that the witches cannot hear each other or cannot produce their own sound, so they cannot have their own workings, I don't get why they would be able to hear a Camarilla sound and how the Camarilla would still be able to work their own workings, because it's still sound. If it's a sound dampener, it would be dampening all sound around it. It's not just like only for a specific person, you know? So it's just like during the moment when they were explaining that kind of confused me, especially in that room when they were against Hurst and the Bellwether unit had these sound dampeners on them. So it's a peeve, because it took me out of the believability of the world, and it's just like, that doesn't make sense how that could work. And it doesn't, yeah, if anything, it would make sense if they had it that they eliminated all sound, so even the Camarilla couldn't use the tech. Then like, okay, then I would believe it. But they had them using the tech while the sound dampener was on. So for me, that's like, you can't have it both ways. But yeah, that's a peeve for me. Maybe I have the idea of how sound works completely wrong, but in the moment of watching, that's what I thought, and that's why it was a peeve. Another peeve I kind of had was the fact that the union of Earth and Sky had nothing to do with Abigail and Adele, and everything to do with Jem and her ability to manipulate two elements when no other witch was able to do so. I feel like it's not that I have a peeve that that's what it ended up being. It's just the fact that they fully only used the last 2 episodes to really introduce this. I felt like this should have been something that was seeded a lot earlier. I mean, it definitely, for it to lead to Abigail's place in the first song's recreation. I mean, we've heard about Jem Bellwether since the first season, so at least that wasn't a surprise. But like with Tally and her sight, we had her training at the beginning of this season with Rael's spot as the witch bomb. We had that introduced in season 1, and she was training and exploring it in season 2. So we knew already the buildup of Tally and Rael's involvement, but with Abigail, it just seemed like in this episode and the previous episode, Jem Bellwether's connection and her part to play in the first song was only introduced last minute, when I feel like it should have been introduced along the way just as Jem was introduced throughout the whole series, because we heard about Jem and what she was capable of, but we never really got into how or even Abigail's deeper connection as we progressed through the story. It was only in the last 2 episodes that those were introduced, which made it feel rushed to me, that this idea that she was connected to the first song. And also the fact that even though they kept honing in back on Earth and Sky, it was probably a red herring to have us all think that it meant the union, like maybe the marriage or a child between Abigail and Adele, since they both represented Earth and Sky individually. But then to come back, no, that was always a reference back to Jem Bellwether. Again, that felt rushed, and to have it all connect back to her when it was only just introduced in the last 2 episodes. Whereas I would have rather have it actually be connected to Abigail and Adele together, because that is something that has been seeded since the end of season 2. And it's been talked about repeatedly throughout season 3. So for me, that's just been a P, because the way it was unleashed in the series, and the fact that it didn't get seeded a lot earlier made it feel rushed in the last 2 episodes. And I don't like having that rushed feeling, because it just seems like you're compensating for the fact that you didn't have more time to really hash things out. So that's something there. Well, let's move on to random questions very quickly. 1, if there are 6 stewards to the first song, why did I only count 5 of them being present during the singing of the first song? Because we saw Kalita first, and first off, she contradicted herself, because she told that guy when they were at the cabin that she wasn't a steward, and yet here she is singing as a steward of the first song. And I mean, I already figured that Kalita was a steward because she wasn't affected by Elaine's piece of the song, but then I got thrown off when she told the boy that she wasn't a steward, and then here she is singing. But anyways, Kalita's the first one, and then we saw Alder singing, which is the second. We saw Tally singing, which is the third. And then we saw Abigail singing as a newly found 4th one. And then we saw Newton singing, who was the one that Alder found fighting for her life in the museum. But she was the 5th one. So where is the 6th steward? I thought it was the boy in the cabin who appeared in the first episode when Alder reappeared again for the first time. But he wasn't present during the singing, and there's no one else that was singing there. The only other people in the mycelium world to sing would be Rael, which wasn't the case because she's the witch mom, or Scylla and Adele, but they were both very sick from the poisoning. So who was the 6th steward? So that's my question there. And the second question was, why would a tornado created by Petra, Abigail, Sterling, and Gregorio, why would it suddenly stop working when the sound dampener kicked in, if the momentum of the tornado would have been enough to keep spinning and cause chaos? I mean, that's my understanding. Like, I understand it was their working that created the tornado, but if there has to be a point of like no return, right? For it to just keep on spinning. Because that was my thought during the episode, but then I remember back to when Abigail created the 3 tornadoes, I believe, and the moment she stopped, they disappeared as well too, I think. But I don't know. I kind of half expected the tornado to still stay in play, even though they couldn't control it anymore. That would have just mean the 4 that would have also been in danger of getting sucked in by the tornado. But if them stopping their concentration would fully dissipate the tornado, then I guess. But that was a huge question I had, is like which one of it would work. But otherwise, also another side question, Hearst did mention to Silver that Cara Brandt couldn't make it for the broadcast, and I'm just wondering why not, where was she? And I kind of wish she was there so that she could also be killed off by Penelope, because I kind of don't like it that she's now a witch in this world. So that's something there. But otherwise, that is pretty much it, guys. What did you guys think of this series finale? What did you guys like about it? What were you hoping to see from the finale? I mean, a part of me is glad that we did get the wedding in the previous episode, because of like how very dire the circumstances were. It was also very interesting that it seemed like a lot of our couples' moments, like Rael and Scylla, barely had any conscious scenes together, where it was just the 2 of them in comparison to the previous episode where it was literally their whole wedding. I mean, we got a moment, their whole episode was each of them worrying about the other one dying. And then same for Abigail and Adil, that we got a moment of them fighting alongside each other, but then Adil got poisoned, and now Abigail's worrying about having to let him go. And then at least they had their couples moment in the previous episode. So it was very interesting to see where the focus came about. I'm actually not sure. I mean, definitely how the unleashing of the first song was definitely a series finale moment. So it's like, I don't know how you would have had a season 4 after unleashing something like that, because now you have everybody being witches. So there really is no Camarilla to fight as non-witch versus witch. But then at the same time, I kind of wonder, because apparently there's supposed to be like a 6 year plan. Kind of wondering what season 3 would have been like if they did have more time. But yeah, that's about it. I'm really sad to see this series end, because this was a very unique take on witch culture. But I really did love the unity between Tally, Raelle, and Abigail. They were the new power of 3 for me when it comes to like sisterhood and bringing different uh, magical properties together. And I was just like, it was very interesting, and it was really great to see just how much female empowerment they had. Like so many really powerful female characters, not just in them 3 or with Scylla, but with also in like the higher ups of like Petra and Abigail, or not Abigail, Petra. Well, yes, her as well, by Petra and Nicostia. Wade, Isadora, and then also seeing great allies with that was another thing. I wish Wade and M were actually in this episode as well too, reuniting to fight with the unit. But having them, I really love their characters too. It was just so many great characters, and Alder as well, and then her coming together with Nikta. It was just so many great characters I wish we had more time with. But I'm glad in this episode it seemed like they all got the resolution that they needed. Aside for Anacostia, I wish that she survived, but I understand why they had to lose some people. She did get a great memorial moment for them. But yeah. Otherwise, guys, that is going to be all about for Motherland Fort Salem. Thank you guys for tuning into my recaps, and just staying along with the journey for this show. It's been really unique. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to miss it. Maybe I'll binge watch it again someday. But just a heads up on my channel in general, I do have a new Legacies video coming out September 1st. I have it scheduled for, so be on the lookout for that. We do a little bit of ranking, if you will, a little bit different, but still ranking in that sense. So that's going to be about it. I got to get ready for work now, but thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in for the last few weeks. Thank you so much for your patience. Hope you come back to see my other videos on the channel. But until then, this is Mel. Wish you all a great day, great week, wherever you are. Bye, guys.